So in this video I'm going to show you how to do this stabilising single crochet border stitch. What it is in essence is a single crochet or UK double, and it's got a built-in slip stitch. You do it all at the same time, and if you look at this side, which is quite stretchy, it helps to minimise the stretch. So it's really great for straps for bags, and also neck edges and straps of tops. And as you can see, it's also really attractive and a really smart and neat finish. It's relatively easy, you just need to concentrate until you get the muscle memory, because it's probably slightly different to anything you're used to doing. Now, in an ideal scenario, you should go down a hook size. For example, if you've used 3.5mm for the main project, you're better off going down to a 3.25 or a 3mm. I'm actually on holiday and I've only got my 3.5mm hook. I mean, it's okay. I've got a slight bit of rippling going on there that you can't really see too much. But if I was at home, I would probably definitely go down to a 3.25 or a 3. But anyway, I'm doing what I can here. I'm also hence slightly different video style because I'm actually out on the balcony. My phone is resting on the clothes rack for drying clothes. I've got a tray from my room and a pillow on my lap. So in case you ever want to set up at your own studio while you're on holiday somewhere, there's an idea for you. And I'm just using natural light to hopefully that will be okay. So let's start. Let's join the yarn. So I'm just holding the tail at the back. I'm going into the stitch, I'm putting up a loop, I'm going to chain one, and I'm going to single crochet straight back into exactly the same stitch. So I go in, pull up a loop, I've got 2, just going to pull that tail a bit, yarn over, draw off 2. So that's our single, which is a UK double. Next up, I'm going to go straight back into the exact same stitch. I'm going to pull up a loop, I'm going to the next stitch, I'm putting up a loop. The loop I've pulled up, I'm pulling all the way through the first loop, and then I'm going to yarn over and draw off 2. So the trick with this stitch is to always keep this live loop nice and tight on the hook. So the first stitch is slightly different to the rest, but when we come to do a sewn bind off, we actually finish it off to match the rest of the stitches. So now we're going to proceed in stitch pattern. So this loop you've got here, you're going to go down into this front loop here, and then you're going to go into the same stitch you've just been in. You're going to pull up a loop, and that loop you've just pulled up, it's going to go through the first loop on the hook. You've got 2 loops on the hook. Then you're going to go into the next stitch, you're going to pull up a loop. The loop you've pulled up is going to carry on through the first loop on the hook. Then you're going to yarn over and draw off 2. So in essence, that's like your normal single you're doing at that point. So again, we just repeat that procedure. This little front loop you've got down here, you're going to go into that and then back through the same stitch you've just worked, and you're putting up a loop, and the loop you've pulled up is going through that first loop on the hook. So in essence, what you're doing there really is a kind of slip stitch. Then you're going into the next stitch, you're pulling up a loop. That loop you've pulled up is going through the first loop on the hook. So again, that's kind of a slip stitch, and then you finish off the single crochet into the loop, into the same stitch, slip stitch off the first loop on the hook, go into the next empty stitch, pull up a loop, slip stitch that through the first loop of the hook. Or really it's chaining. Chaining and slip stitching are actually the same thing really, but one's just going through a fabric and one is in mid-air, so to speak. Yarn over, draw off 2. Into the front loop, so notice I'm going down into that and then down into the stitch, pulling up a loop. That loop goes through the first loop on the hook, I've got 2, into the next empty stitch, pull up a loop. That one also goes through the first loop on the hook, yarn over, draw off 2. And as I said, the important thing with this one is to keep this live loop nice and tight on the hook. If you start losing control, so I'm exaggerating here, but if you start losing control of that loop, then your stitches will start to look messy. So the key to these is keeping this loop tight. So this is kind of, in a way, this is kind of similar to doing a single crochet or a UK double foundation stitch, because you're kind of slip stitching and joining. You're incorporating some slip stitches as you're making the stitch. So this bit here is a little bit awkward because I've actually working into a chain rather than a stitch. So typical errors with this are missing out a step. So it might be that you go through this first loop into the same stitch and then pull up a loop, and then you might accidentally finish off the single crochet instead of doing the 2 steps. So you're going into that first loop and into the first stitch, pulling up the loop, drawing off the first one, and then into the next one, pulling that one off. So that's the most common one, is people just missing out a step or accidentally drawing off too many loops in one go. So by creating this sort of surface slip stitch, really what we're doing is that's actually what's stabilizing the whole stitch. It's this slip stitch that we are only working into part of, or that we can only see part of. That's what's stabilizing the single crochet. Anyway, so I'm going to carry on working this stitch, and then I'll show you how to fasten off and make this first stitch match the rest of it. Once you get good at this, you can literally just poke it straight into the correct spot without too much trouble, and it becomes much quicker. Okay, I've worked into the last stitch, and then I want to do a seam bind off so that I continue this front loop. So we are going to need a tapestry needle and a pair of scissors. So cut the yarn, leaving a tail long enough for sewing in. This live loop pops straight out. Get your needle. Okay, so we're making a mock stitch here, so let's work out what went on here. Right at the beginning here, we had a chain 1, then we had our first stitch. So we're going to ignore the first stitch, and we're actually going to go into the second stitch. See how my hook needle, is going exactly the same way my crochet hook would go, front loop, back loop. Pull that gently. This loop you've made here needs to be roughly the same size as these other front loops. Turn the work round to the back. Have a look where this is coming out of the top of this last stitch you made. And then you're going to go down where this is coming out. You're going slightly in front of it here to the back, and then catch that back ridge. Pull to the left. Now, if the first stitch you made is rising up a bit, just pull the tail. There we go. It's now out of the way. So I've created a continuous line along there. Next thing I want to do is mimic. I'm missing one of these front loops. So if we have a look at how they're coming out, they're coming above the one before and then below the next one, above the one before and below the next one. So I'm literally just going to get my needle. We've got this last one here. From the back, I want my needle to pop up just above that last front loop that I made. And again, you might not get this looking perfect, but we are happy to get it, looking relatively matching up. And then it needs to come underneath that first loop we got there. Pull it until it sort of matches the rest of your work. I think my last stitch there was a bit baggy, but I think in the grand scheme of things that's going to be okay. And now I'm just going to sew that in. So all you're doing is trying to mimic with the needle and thread, a very short back stitch there before carrying on through the legs of those. Trim this one along a few. Back stitch along a few more. Notice I'm going through the legs of the posts and not the top of the stitches. And let's trim that and then we'll have a quick look. Yeah, not bad at first glance. No one's going to know, are they? So this is what it looks like. I've been using it to stabilize the edge of this bag. This bag, got a few ends to sew in still. This bag is part of my vintage style flower bag course. It's an online and in-person course. If you can't make the in-person course, then you can sign up for my online course. The link is in the caption of the video. On the online course there's lots of tutorials, including how to decrease in this stitch, and also obviously how to make the other elements of this bag. Anyway, what do you think? Is this a stitch that you would use? And if you do give it a go, I'd love to see what you've made and how you got on with it. Thanks for watching.